The galaxy had called them contamination tolerant. In the end, that was just a polite way of saying they were the only ones coming. The fleet that turned toward the freight cathedral was not elegant. It was patched rescue hulls, refitted tow craft, hazard cutters, salvage boats with emergency lighting bolted over old scar plates, and the kind of support ships respectable navies never photographed unless they needed saving. Formal military squadrons held distance and offered geometry. Human rescue crews offered proximity. They closed on the command hive because proximity was the one thing the galaxy's better-equipped forces had spent 3 episodes proving they did not possess the nerve to maintain.
One more time, we are not here to win a speech. We extract whoever's still alive, sever command control, overload the drive spine, and make sure this thing dies pointed away from the core.
It had started on Kepri 9, where a living plague rewired a station designed for sterile safety. It had spread into Aster Gate, where humans proved they were the only responders who could survive the infected environment long enough to understand it. Then the truth cracked open. The plague had been tuned through labor route suffering, steered by contractor systems, and hidden behind institutions that preferred expendable workers to embarrassing facts.
The cathedral is carrying the densest command architecture we have seen. If it crosses the core lanes, it concedes synchronized outbreaks through transit, clinical and diplomatic infrastructure before anyone agrees on terminology.
So we do what humans always do, enter the place everyone else described as regrettable and solve it before the meeting starts.
I am opening public archive mirrors before we board. If we disappear, the conspiracy does not vanish with us.
Good, then let's go make certainty expensive.
The freight cathedral had once been built for bulk logistics, cathedral only in the sense of scale. The plague had improved on the metaphor. By the time Elias cut through the outer skin, the ship's white cargo ribs had been wrapped in breathing black-red tissue. Support beams throbbed like tendons. Cargo aisles narrowed into throat-like passages. Light came in pulses, not fixtures.
Remember this shape. It wants us in the prettiest lanes. We take the maintenance scars, the broken ladders, and anything that smells like bad engineering.
My favorite kind of tourism.
The first defense came as environmental manipulation. Heat from below, freezer air from above, pressure ripples in the corridor floor. The hive was trying to kill them with civilized assumptions, that bodies liked stable footing, clean breath, and a predictable next step.
It is reconfiguring around our movement almost instantly.
Then let's stay rude enough to be unreadable.
The inner decks folded into a maze of grown partitions and repurposed cargo braces. Some passages looked clear and were not. Others looked impossible and merely required a person raised around bad odds and worse ventilation.
Stop, that corridor is wrong.
You saying movement?
No, that's the problem. Too still, too clean. It's bait. This thing keeps building death out of symmetry. The safe route will look like a place management forgot to finish.
He led them through a side gap half-blocked by warped freight mesh, over coolant stain, past dead service labels, and down into the kinds of awkward spaces no official tactical model would ever call optimal. The hive tried to reroute around them 3 times. Each time Toma guessed the lie before it closed.
You are reading this architecture faster than my predictive software.
That's because your software still believes bad design is accidental.
Near the heart of the ship, Lyra finally saw the design logic hole. The hive had not been built against strength. It had been built against regularity, against bodies that wanted the same pressure every breath, against systems that relied on clean automation, against officials who preferred doctrine to improvisation.
Elias, I have been describing human survival incorrectly the entire time.
That's a dangerous sentence this deep in a murder ship.
This organism was tuned to defeat efficiency, purity, and predictable optimization. Humans were never merely resistant to it. You are structurally inconvenient to its assumptions. Your bodies compensate. Your crews repair by hand. Your command culture tolerates ugly solutions. You are not beating the hive by accident. You are beating it because it was designed by people who mistook dignity for fragility and fragility for superiority.
I would like that engraved somewhere rude.
Survive first, engrave later.
The central cargo nave opened into suspended human-sized chambers wired into the hive's nervous architecture. Some held contractors, some held technicians, some held civilian captives taken from the transit spindle and kept alive as living calibration material.
Of course it kept samples.
I hate every word in this room.
Manual release only. The neural feed is chained to the command node. If we pull the wrong sequence, the hive will purge the chambers to save itself.
So they did what humans had done from the first episode onward. They chose rescue inside the worst possible timetable. Elias cut supports. Toma carried the semiconscious. Lyra translated the chamber logic one trembling layer at a time. The mission had been called termination. Human rescue crews remained offensively literal about priorities.
Get the captives to Shuttle 2. Nobody dies in a room built to measure them.
Beyond the rescue chambers sat a vault that should have been impossible. The hive had grown itself around an intact contractor archive, preserving data stacks the way a predator preserves teeth. Clear panels floated behind black-red roots, each one alive with old trial tags, labor root indexing, and biometric tolerances attached to human sectors the core had spent generations pretending not to see.
It kept the records, it kept all of them.
Read me the worst lines.
Candidate populations ranked by environmental overexposure, recovery times, contaminant load tolerance, manual repair behavior under pain. They were not testing how to stop outbreaks. They were testing which species could be used as the baseline for controlled suffering.
Say human, I am tired of hearing crimes described like they were weather.
Human, they built this against human labor maps first, then optimized it for elite infrastructure second. The whole hierarchy is here in code.
Elias looked through columns of routes no counselor had ever memorized because the people who worked them did not matter enough to require imagination. Waste tunnels, salvage veins, coolant pits, decon pits, vent crawls, places civilization had used like hidden organs and then denied as part of its own body.
Then we take the ledger with us. I want the galaxy looking at names, not abstractions, when this thing dies.
Good, let every polished office read exactly how much pain it outsourced.
From the command carrier outside, Saren opened every archive mirror she had protected since Asta Gate and tied the final data chain directly into public civic bands. No committee filter, no contractor review, no elegant lie left in the path between the facts and the people who had paid for them.
To every station, labor route, passenger lane, and emergency authority still listening, the outbreaks were not random. The command architecture traces to Helix Meridian biodefense and allied custodial shells. Human labor exposure data was used in development. Official suppression orders were issued after rescue evidence contradicted council messaging. I am transmitting identifiers now.
She did not stop with identifiers. She sent the rescue footage, the casualty suppression packets, the budget authorizations, the labor route procurement exceptions, and the biometric ledgers the hive itself had preserved. Across the network, people who had never once asked who kept their systems functioning suddenly had to face the answer in high resolution.
Also, for the record, the species you taught yourselves to call expendable is currently inside the hive finishing the work none of you had the courage to begin.
I knew I liked her.
Civilian channels flooded with acknowledgements, rage, prayer, confession, and the kind of stunned gratitude that arrives only when a social myth dies in public. For the first time, the galaxy was not watching humans as hired background motion. It was watching them at the center of its survival. At the center of the cathedral, the command node hung over the drive spine like a brain suspended inside a furnace. Black-red roots fused computation, circulation, and propulsion into one living decision engine. To kill it cleanly would take time. To kill it in time would take nerve.
I can lock a burn trajectory away from the core, but someone has to trigger the manual overload at the spine junction after I sever command recursion.
Then that's me.
You say that too fast for my nerves.
Toma, get the last captives out. Lyra, cut the brain loose. Saren, if I miss the window, tell the galaxy something flattering about my posture.
I will tell them you were deeply unreasonable.
The hive adapted on instinct. Corridors tightened, pressure surged, heat climbed, bulkhead membranes split and resealed like muscle around a wound. Elias moved anyway, one gloved hand on a manual rail, one boot slipping through living residue, the whole ship trying to convince him that no body should keep advancing through this much engineered refusal. Behind him, Toma half-carried a contractor technician, who could barely understand that the same human labor class her employer had treated like disposable infrastructure was now dragging her toward daylight. Beside the node, Lyra cut recursion branches one by one while the chamber screamed in modem-bright pulses. Outside the hull, Saren kept reading names into the public record, so no one would ever again be able to call the dead a regrettable cost category.
Command recursion broken, Burn vector aligned, Elias now.
With a pleasure.
He drove the overload bar home with both hands. The drive spine answered with a sound too large to be called mechanical. Behind him, the cathedral's nervous system lit white through every black-red branch. Ahead of him, the escape corridor opened just long enough for a species trained by ugly jobs and bad options to make impossibility look procedural. The freight cathedral died far from the population lanes, burning itself into a bright wound against the dark, while rescue craft peeled away with overloaded cabins and failing coolant, and the kind of silence that only comes after the body decides it is allowed to keep living. No council's summary could soften what happened next. The archive mirrors held, the contractor chain held, the rescue footage held, and so at last did the truth. Humans had not saved the core because they were cheap enough to spend. They had saved it because they were capable enough to enter what everyone else feared and ethical enough to keep choosing rescue once inside.
The literature on human adaptation will need revision.
Start with this chapter. Don't build your civilization on top of people you refuse to understand.
Reconstruction Council has asked for wording on the memorial plaque at Astor Gate. They requested something formal. I assume we will ignore them.
Good assumption.
Recognition did not fix everything. Labor contracts had to be rewritten. Command cultures had to be humiliated. Families across the network still had names to mourn. But for the first time, the species that had always been sent first into contamination was no longer being thanked like a tool. It was being seen like a people. Months later, when the rebuilt station opened its quiet hall to the public again, one plaque sat near the old rescue lock where the polished architecture gave way to maintenance steel. It did not flatter power. It did not thank the right committees. It simply told the truth the galaxy had taken too long to learn. First to enter, last to leave, human rescue fleet.